Here is the Crescendo Music Education Podcast, episode number 41. This podcast is being recorded on the lands of the Turrbal people. I acknowledge them as the traditional owners of the land and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. They were the first music makers on this land. In this episode, I chat with my friend Wendy Rolls. She's an incredibly clever lady. I'm very lucky to have her as a friend. But not only am I lucky to have her as a friend, I'm lucky to have her as a colleague. An amazing teacher, an amazing music educator. She's now doing quite in-depth work in the area of adolescent female voices. It's just absolutely fascinating. I'm sure you'll love it. And a big crescendo welcome to Wendy Rolls. Hello, Wendy.
Hello, Debbie.
It is lovely to see you.
So exciting.
And I will confess up front that Wendy is not only an amazing person that you should all hear about, she's also a friend of mine. So there, I'll just, say that up front.
Why not? I'm very lucky to be your friend.
Okay, I'm going to start reading just a short bio before we begin. So those people who don't know you can have a little bit of background there. So Wendy Rolls enjoys working with singers of all ages as teacher, conductor and performer. She currently divides her time teaching singing between Brisbane Girls Grammar School, Hallows School and her private studio, as well as conducting an auditioned chamber choir for middle school girls. With extensive choral and classroom music experience, Wendy's interest in adolescent girls singing was sparked while completing a Masters of Music Studies in Vocal Pedagogy from the Queensland Conservatorium, Griffith University. This became her PhD research, exploring the pedagogical needs of adolescent female singers undergoing voice change. She also holds a Bachelor of Veterinary Science, UQ, Bachelor of Education, QUT, and an Australian Kodály certificate. She has presented for ANATS, ANCA, and Kodály Australia. Wow. Just listening to that, the first time I met Wendy, I was a bit mind blown. Oh, so you were a vet and you decided to change to music teaching. Okay, I think we need to just go there for a minute. But first, listening to that bio, is there anything else you'd like to add to that brief summary that's not there?
No, I think I have led quite a tortuous life. I've had a very lovely life, but my path has changed quite a bit. I couldn't decide when I was at school. My 10-year-old self wanted to be a vet, but the rest of me wanted to do music. So vet came first, and I was very fortunate to get into vet. So that's what I did. And I practiced for 5 years, and met my husband. So that was a bonus. That was a big effort to meet a husband. But we're still together and happy. So good investment. But also now I feel like I'm coming full circle, because that biological training, anatomy and physiology has all stood me in really good stead. Now I'm coming back to the science as well as the art and craft of teaching music and singing. So, yeah.
Yes,
that makes sense?
Actually, I hadn't even thought about that, would you believe? That now, of course, your focus on the mechanisms as well, the science and the biology. I knew that was part of what you were doing, but I actually hadn't in my brain hooked that back to your medical training. But of course, it makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, and veterinary anatomy, it's all theme and variations, and we're all, mostly we learned about mammals. So that was that, yes. And then when my children were little, I was trying to decide whether I should do the vocal ped masters, and we were living in Gundawindi, and I'd come down one day a week, but or do education. And I'm really grateful that I did education, because that was a wonderful, wonderful part of my career. And we'll get to that later when I talk about who I'm grateful for. So I feel like it's been quite a lovely path that I've been very, very fortunate to follow.
That's
and I'm having fun.
That's wonderful. And let's face it, it's your path. So why not love it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yes, exactly. I'm choosing.
Choose love. So what would you consider the highlight or highlights of your journey, focusing on the music education part, since our audience is basically music teachers?
Music teachers.
What do you think would be the highlights of your journey?
Yes, I think the very first thing I'd have to say was being dragged off to Melbourne for my first Kodály conference, and by Faye Duffield, who is someone I'm immensely grateful for and have unfortunately lost track of. So I really need to try to find Faye Duffield, because she was the classroom music teacher and I was volunteering as an instrumental teacher. And I just had no concept of what classroom music was about. It was not part of my experience, and it was completely foreign. I didn't know anything about this weird solfa stuff, or time names, rhythm names. And so she took me off there, and it was like, oh, it was wonderful. So I thought, oh yeah, there's actually really good stuff here to get your teeth into. So that, and then when I was doing education, I was so lucky to be able to come down and have a month at Clayfield College with Anne Slade as my supervising teacher. And I learnt so much there in that month. It was the jam-packest month. It was like 6 months. We had so many concerts and QYMA competitions and prep music night, and it was amazing. And yeah, seemed to be so much more than a month. And then I was super lucky to go back and teach there for 12 years the following year. Yeah, so that would be a highlight. Then I think going to the con and finally studying the music, the vocal pedagogy course there. Yeah, that's.
Wow.
I guess they're big signposts. Yeah.
Yes. No. That's amazing. And I think that a lot of people who, of course, I'm biased as a Kodály-based teacher, when you hit that first intense Kodály course where you go, like you said, like all the lights come on, you go, oh, I can see sequence, I can see logic, I can see how I can lead all children to this understanding. That's...
Yes, the equity of it was really attractive to me. The fact that it was accessible to everyone, and living in a regional area, simple thing, like when I did my AMEB theory exams, how do I practice my intervals? I don't know. I know if I play the piano, I'll know what notes I'm playing. Once I learnt solfa, I was able to just do it myself. A simple thing.
Yes, and you're able to actually teach how to do it, which I'm reminded when I did my first ever piano exam, I was 25, because I'd learnt piano, but my parents were not musical at all, and weren't highly educated. And they said to me, we want you to have opportunities. So took me off to piano lessons. And then they said to this, 10-year-old kid, whatever age I was, 9, whenever I started, do you want to do exams? And I went, no, because it was a completely foreign
word. Are you mad?
No. So I didn't do exams. And then I ended up being, I don't know, a primary music teacher. So I thought I might go back and do exams. Right. So I toddled off I asked around for the name of a teacher who would help me get through some exams, and went to a very traditional, older, respected piano teacher. So I Rona Morton. I went to Rona Morton, and she said, sit down, play this. I said, I want to do an exam. And she said, I think you can do grade 5. I went, okay.
Holy dooly.
I went, really? Okay, do you think? Okay, we'll do that.
Did we start at grade 1 maybe?
Yeah, okay. But I had learnt for years I could play.
Yeah.
But
good on you.
But can I say I had never really played scales and stuff, like just a bit. But why would I? I'm not doing exams. I wanted to play John Paul Young. Yeah, take a look at me on yesterday's hero. Like, I wanted to do that stuff. Anyway, sorry, this story is long. I actually wanted to get to the point of the story.
Right.
And that is, we came close to exam time, and then it was, oh, there is an oral component. Oh, and I decided I would do Trinity, not AMEB. I can't actually even remember why I made that decision, but I did. And then, oh, there's an oral component a few weeks before. You'll have to identify a major chord. It sounds like this. A minor chord sounds like this. Augmented, this. You'll have to do this. And it was just sort of laid out before me. Now, as it was, I actually could do that quite easily, but only because I'd be going every Tuesday night to Clayfield College and doing a relationship with Judy Johnson, going do mi sol mi do one major, do mi la mi do. What so and so in my head,
it was there.
Training was there, but if it was not, I'm not saying I couldn't have done major and minor triads.
But you've got a language.
Yes,
you've got a language, and you've got the audiation.
Exactly, and I needed that, and I would have been really quite panicked without that, because that oral must be taught. It's something I'd have. Anyway, I'm raving. So, Wendy, feel free to
No, that's right.
Debbie, you're allowed to say that.
Oh, okay. Woo! The power. Okay.
All right. Now,
anyway,
let's talk gratitude. Next? Let's talk gratitude. Please include so many people that you feel have been of great influence to you.
So many. That's a podcast in itself. But anyway, that's only probably really interesting to me. But, well, like you, I learnt piano. I did do exams, but not as early as didn't start as early as I may have liked. But when I was in my late teens, Julie Price, who was Julie Evans at the time, she was our youth worker at church. She said, come and play keyboard in church with me. And she sat on the organ, for goodness sake, this is a long time ago. But she played, did she play the organ or the keyboard? I don't know. And I played the piano. I learnt one song. And I sat there and went, okay, this is my song. I can play the song. And then she did the rest of the service. But, and then it was 2 songs. And so that confidence of using those piano skills in a way, I had to keep going. I couldn't stop because everybody else was singing. So I'm really grateful for Julie for her mentorship with that. And she is such a gorgeous human. Faye Duffield, I've already mentioned when I went to Gundawindi. She was really encouraging and motivating. Jan Hungerford was my main singing teacher. I think I had about 10 over the last however many years. But Jan Hungerford is a beautiful singing teacher. And she encouraged me to just try new things. And she took me through my singing exams. Who else? Ron Morris is my supervisor for my PhD, and he's part of the team with Arian Bartlett at the Con. And he's such an inspiring human too, and so encouraging. Who else? Oh, the whole Kodály community. I just feel like I was welcomed with open arms and I belonged from the moment I arrived, even though I wasn't a real music teacher. It wasn't until I was driving home after having successfully been offered the job at Clayfield. I was driving up the Toowoomba Range because I came down from Gundawindi to Brisbane and back in the one day, and that's 365 k's each way. So it was a big day. But I was driving home, floating home, going up the Toowoomba Range, and I thought, I must be a real music teacher now. That's amazing. Because I'd had such I don't have a BMUS. I had such an unorthodox pathway, but now I'm realizing that actually the orthodox pathway is not as common as we might expect. So I've spent my life trying to fill all the gaps, and that's made me a really active learner, I think, because I've been consciously filling gaps. I'd come to every PD that I could manage, and that sort of thing, and they kept just doing degrees, which is a bit ridiculous. But anyway,
yes. I think if you looked up lifelong learner in the dictionary, I think the first definition is Wendy Rolls.
I don't have any hobbies, Debbie.
I'm I'm there too. I'm with you on that.
Yes, you
Too.
are.
Yeah,
Yes. And
and
then the last people I have to acknowledge is now the ANATS community as well. That's the Australian National Association of Teachers of Singing, of which I'm the vice president of the Queensland committee now, which is a bit amazing.
you.
But they have been so warm and welcoming too. So, I think I'm really grateful for this community we belong to as music educators. I love it. I'm so grateful.
I
There
do
you go.
love that sharing, welcoming part of the tribe. It's wonderful, isn't it? And I think we need it in this job too, because it's not an easy job to face by yourself. It's much easier and joyous to do it together.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we're often siloed. And so I'm very grateful for the colleagues I have, at the different schools that I have.
Yes.
That you can just share your angst, share your moments of, oh my gosh, did I do the wrong thing? Have I ruined someone's life? And then to be reassured that perhaps not.
Perhaps not. Perhaps not. Yes.
But
And
let's
more
get up the next day
importantly,
and
to
do
share
better.
all of our great ideas. But yes, you need both. You need someone who'll understand your worries, and you'll need someone to give you that great inspiration and new approach and teaching ideas. It's wonderful. Now,
yes.
Now this is fascinating.
Yes.
I want to talk about your work
Okay.
focusing on changing adolescent girls' voices. Now, we know that boys' voices change. Like, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? And I am a mother of boys, and the change was, I don't know, it was quite joyous in our place. It was quite celebrated, and it was like, it's just fun. But can I make a terrible confession to you, Wendy Rolls, as someone who is a music educator? Until you were on this path, so I knew about this through you, I really didn't know about adolescent girls' voices doing much at all. So after making that big confession to whoever is listening to this podcast, and I probably should have known, because I'm like you, I go to 1,000 workshops and courses, and I never stop learning, but it really didn't come across my radar until you. So can you please, assuming there's a few other ignorant people like me out there, tell us in very simple language, though. Tell us about adolescent girls' voices.
Yes, certainly. So, firstly, you are not alone, and I was not aware of voice change pathways for girls, and I guess, but I knew from teaching my girls, but I hadn't really been, and the penny hadn't dropped for me. I knew that there was funny stuff. Maybe maybe I'm just retrospectoscoping, but but really, I expected to learn about this in my course, and we didn't. And I'll show you this book here, which is the most wonderful book. Is that back to front, or is that the right way?
No, it's actually the right way for me. Teaching Singing to Children and Young Adults.
Children and Young Adults by Ginevra Williams. And she's a gorgeous, gorgeous lady. She did a PhD on boys' voices in cathedral choirs in England, London. And she lives in Reading, I think. And I went and sat at her kitchen table and picked her brains about this. But in her book, which came out in 2013 or 2012, she has, and from memory, something like 4 pages about girls changing voices and maybe 11 about boys. And Ginevra is not the only one who has that in her book. There are, apart from the books that I've now found that are about girls changing voices, if you look up a book on vocal pedagogy, that is what will be. There'll be a couple of pages about girls, not very much, and then oceans about boys. Now, maybe that's the nature of our society. Maybe it's the fact that we had boys' cathedral choirs. I don't know. But historically, it has not gained much attention. So I was a bit excited when I realised that I had found a little gap in the knowledge, and luckily it was a gap that I was intensely interested in. So girls' voices change around about, and the model we use is by Lynn Gackel currently, but my colleague and friend Christina Gronborg is doing a longitudinal study of girls from, I think she's doing grade 5 to grade 9. So that's real commitment. She's got maybe 30 students that she assesses, I think, 4 times a year. Don't trust me on these numbers. It's something like this. And she's measuring their voices, their hands, their feet, and their height in order to track what their voices do in relation to puberty, singing lessons or no singing lessons. Nobody's really done that before. Like this is amazing that we finally got this. Most of the work has pretty much been done with choirs. Oh, generally like this, generally like that, and then generally like that, you know, and I don't want to downplay the rigor of those studies, but the individual voices being studied is I believe neglected. So it's exciting to be able to plug some holes in that space, if that makes sense. And I'm really grateful to all those lovely researchers whose work we're building on. So I'm not wanting to belittle that, but this is very much a watch this space. So the model of Lynn Gackel's has phase 1, which is pre-puberty, phase 2A and 2B, which is the middle of voice change, the murky stuff, and then phase 3 is 16 plus, you know, when their voices settle down, and they're like grade 10 and older in Australia. So, you know, 15, 16, things seem to settle down. But between the ages of maybe 12, sometimes 13, and 14, through to 14. So I'm thinking mostly year 8 and 9 is the murkiest time, sometimes a bit earlier, but that's the murkiest time of voice change. It becomes really uncomfortable for girls to sing. It becomes awkward, uncomfortable. They know something's not working, and they tend to suffer in silence because it's not something that we celebrate, like you said, with your boys. And I remember one of my sons coming in through the door and thinking their father had come home. You know, it was like, oh my gosh, you're not a little boy anymore, you know. And so we don't celebrate. That's absolutely right. And so the girls suffer in silence. And what they used to do and gain joy, they'd open their mouth and would come out. Doesn't happen anymore. And so because everything's growing, the brain can't coordinate anymore. I use the analogy of my husband drives a big four-wheel drive. I drive a Honda Jazz. When I get in his car, it's like, oh, I'm going to hit the parked cars on the side of the road. Don't ask me to park it because I don't know how to drive it. It's very similar that we don't have that proprioception of our voice because the larynx changes shape. In boys, the larynx gets taller, and the vocal folds therefore get longer, and that's why the boys' voices drop by an octave. But in girls' voices, the larynx doesn't get so much bigger this way as just overall bigger, and so it only drops by a third. And that's the difference in pitch between a male key and a female key. So it drops by a third once it settles, all right? But in the middle, it's a little bit like, and we'll come back to that in a minute. So, and the other thing is, because it's all changing, then the nerves and the muscles driving the movement of the larynx and the bringing the vocal folds together, they've lost all their fine-tuning that they had previously. And that fine-tuning has to then redevelop. So that's the other big symptom of voice change, is that you get breathiness because the vocal, I should have brought my larynx. I didn't think about this being anyway, if you're listening audially, you won't see what I'm doing with my hands. Anyway, the vocal folds, the larynx tilts forward and down, so down to go high, I'm talking about, but singing requires the vocal folds to come together. And because of this change in the muscle and the nerve coordination and strength and things, the vocal folds don't close all the way, and there's usually often a gap at the back. Now, boys can get this too, but it's quite a feature of girls' voice change. So that gap at the back allows breath to escape, and that's when you get the the breathy sound. So
Ah.
instead of getting you go. Can you hear the difference in those two
Yes.
sounds?
So that's
Yeah.
one of the main outward indications that it's
Yes,
happening is that
breathiness
breathiness.
and loss of power, because everything's not working as well as it might. Loss of power and discomfort. It's uncomfortable.
Oh.
And they know something's wrong and they become very despondent. And yeah, so anyway, is that enough?
Oh, that's fabulous.
Now,
Do they still maintain control over pitch?
yes, I was just thinking I need to say something about that. Mostly that can be a problem too, and that can fluctuate. It's not quite like the boys where they have a little
Yeah.
thing. So I need to talk about high and low. There's two main ways. I'm generalising, but there's two main ways the voice makes sound. One is the full thickness of the vocal folds come together, and they vibrate, and that's what we use in speech mostly, unless you're talking like this. But when we speak in what's modal voice, it's also called mechanism 1 or M1 for short. So the full thickness of the vocal folds are vibrating. That's also called chest voice. Now head voice, the is M2, mechanism 2, and only the cover of the vocal folds is vibrating. So it's a bit like if you're pulling your doona up in the night and you only just get the cover of the doona and the rest of the fluffy stuff.
I hate that in winter.
Yes, yes. So really what you're getting is just that vibration of the thin cover. Mm-hmm. It's pretty special because that's how we get the lovely soprano sound. And it's falsetto in men. So that's that thin fold, head voice. I call it M2, mechanism 2. There's also mechanism 0, which is Bob Hawke or the Kardashians. That's vocal fry. And I am generalising here, but there's also then the Queen of the Night or the mini Ripperton, the M3, the puppy whimper. So there's a very cool, can I share with you a quick, are we running out of time?
No,
a quick exercise that Shelley Holcomb, who's also someone I'm very grateful for, she was my singing teacher at the con, and she has this exercise she does where you put your hand on your chest and go, hey. Have I done this with you? Hey.
Hey.
Hey. And you feel the vibration under your hand. Now, for music teachers, for teachers anyway, when you're speaking in a class, you should feel that vibration there because that tells you you're using modal voice. That's a good little check-in. Mm-hmm. Hey, all right, that's right, you know. And then if you go, woohoo, do a woohoo for me.
Woohoo! Oh, it's vibration.
And the vibration goes away. Yeah. Woohoo! Hey. Woohoo! And then if you add the puppy whimper.
Well, I find that one hard.
Oh, isn't that funny? Zoom cut out the sound. I couldn't hear your sound.
Oh, okay.
So that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you do those three, that's M1, M2, and M3, it's actually it's fun. Kids can do it and it's fun. And it gets away from that, woohoo, oh, that's a girly voice. No, call it M2. And it's not a girly voice. Or it's not a pop sound. You know, if you don't want to sing, I don't want to sing pop sounds. So if you want to encourage people to use their whole voice rather than just one part of their voice, their M1, if they're having trouble escaping into that M2 area, this is quite a fun exercise for them to recognise that, oh, my voice actually has 3 different sections. And you can say things like, how comfortable are you in each of those places? Which do you reckon is your strong, your strong mechanism? And which one do you think is the one needing more work? And it's taking away from, I don't sing high, to, oh, that's part of my voice, so I could use that. Maybe I could, and the old, analogy of, well, if you locked one arm away in a sling for 6 months, how strong would it be when you took it out? So do you really want part of your voice to go weak like that arm that's been in a sling? Anyway, so they're just little tricks I use to encourage people to use their whole voice.
I like that.
I
So
think I went off track then.
yeah, but delightfully off track. That's fine. So the PhD that you're doing now, you're studying, you're actually tracking some
Yes,
adolescent girls
so
and
I
measuring.
am.
You're doing that. Wow. How long is that going to take you?
So my study is a mixed study. It's a case study. Christina's study is purely quantitative, purely measured, and hers is the one that will take 4 years or something. But my study is for each group of girls over 18 months. So I start them at the start of year 8 and track them until halfway through year 9. So this year I've had 7 students that at the start of year 8, and I'll track them. We've had 2 data captures. So that was at the beginning of the year, despite all the COVID and floods and things. And then at the end of this year, just in November, and then towards the end of term, so May, June next year, we'll finish. That will be them. But then I'm going to start another 3. So all up, I'll have 10 participants, and it's an embedded multiple case study. So each one, I will study each student individually, but I'll also then be able to look at the group. So it's too small to be a full-blown randomised control trial because I am giving them singing lessons. And that's part of my study is what's the interaction between them having singing lessons and undergoing voice change. And because voice change is quite variable in girls, there's no guarantee that everyone will have a terrible time of it. Some girls just sail straight through. I wonder if perhaps I sailed straight through. I don't have any recollection. So maybe I didn't struggle at the time. But hopefully by having 10 students, I'll capture a mixture of things. And my study is a mixed method. So it's a mixture of qualitative and quantitative stuff. I'm doing a phonetogram and a voice protocol into a machine that they just say and sing things into the machine analyzes it. As well as that, they're singing a song. We're singing The Parting Glass, that little folk song, which is just perfect. I'm so grateful I found that song. And they sing that and I record it each time. And when I have 3 recordings, I'll send that off to a panel of people who don't know the girls. They won't know which one they're hearing first, second or third, and they'll rank them according to the changes that they hear. Hopefully they get better. But hey, the other thing is, and this is the most important thing in a way, is I'm doing a reflection with them at each point. So that's capturing their thoughts and their feelings and their knowledge about what's happening with their voice. It's a 7-page thing which has lots of ticks and flicks, but then they also write paragraphs about what's happening in their voice because it may well be that nothing that I do in my lessons actually helps the course of voice change. We don't know. It may well be that all the exercises I teach them make them sound a bit better in the short term, but maybe it won't actually shorten the course of what has to happen physiologically. But it may be that the voice lessons are a way of keeping them encouraged and keeping them singing while it's happening, so that when they come out the other end, they're still singing and they don't hate themselves, because it is a common thing that, well, I don't know how common. I don't know because it's understudied, but it is a thing that there are some girls who stop singing because they don't like it anymore. It's not fun, it's uncomfortable, and it doesn't sound any good. And people used to say, "Oh, I love it when you sing," and now they don't. So no, I just will go into my corner and not do that anymore. Does that make sense?
Yes. It's fascinating. And you've got to keep that momentum, keep doing that. We are waiting for your results. That will be lovely.
Oh, yes, it's so interesting, I have to tell you. Yeah, and I think we need to be aware of what's going on inside these girls' heads. I know that anxiety is such an issue, perfectionism is such an issue, and I happen to work in 2 girls' schools exclusively now, pretty much. Although my home studio has boys as well, but I think that if we can attend to voice change as well in a supportive, encouraging way, then I think that's got to be part of the package, part of the help.
It's got to
really.
help generally, the anxiety generally, and the perfectionism generally.
And music making is part of feeding our soul, and belonging to choirs is part of feeding people's souls. So I think if their enjoyment is being damaged or hampered in any way, we need to address that. We need to know about it. We need to arm them with knowledge at least, or just hold it, even if we're just holding their hands while they go through the process.
Yeah, fabulous. Thank you for contributing to this knowledge for all of us, because we need to know this too as educators, don't we?
Yeah, I think so.
We have arrived at the nuggets of fabulous.
Oh my gosh.
I know. Now, I actually had the privilege of working with Wendy for 1 year. Wendy did 1 day a week at the school, the same school as me.
That's great.
Wonderful.
Highlight of my week.
It was fabulous. I loved it when Wendy came along, and, it's so good to have a colleague, and a good one. Oh, my heavens. So I know you had lots of songs, games, activities, tips, tricks, lots of things up your sleeve. So it could be to do with voice. Obviously, that's where you're focused now. But it doesn't have to be. Your nuggets of fabulous can be absolutely anything that you have loved working with students.
Yeah.
I reckon it's hard to pick, isn't it? Hard to pick.
Oh, it's so hard to pick, Debbie. So hard. And I've listened to your other guests, and I race home and write them down, because I often listen in the car, driving home from work. I race in and write them down because they're such good nuggets. I'm feeling the pressure, can I say? I haven't actually taught classroom for quite some time. Well, 2020 I had 1 year 9 class, so that was the last time. So I think that my nuggets are not games and things like that at the moment. I think they're more practices. They're not actually things. Is that okay?
I think that's wonderful.
Okay. So one is, I have become absolutely committed and aware of and committed to helping my students build habits, so that, and because my reading and the people I follow and things. So having sequences and rituals that my students can follow, so that they really build day in, day out these habits that they can rely on then. And then that you get that myelination, the nerve fibers fire together and wire together, and then they're myelinated together, so that it's a really strong pathway, and we're creating lasting benefits. And so for that reason, then I'm glad that we've got a video, because I can show you my little card. This is the first one I've done, and part of my holiday plan is to do more. So the next thing is for them to have a routine. Now, this is my vocal fitness routine. This is like level 1 vocal fitness. And this leads me to my next thing, that especially with teenage girls, and I apologise, that's my thing, but I don't know who doesn't. I have been a tech head forever. I was the first person.
You are a tech nerd, Wendy. You so are a tech nerd.
Yep. But I have rediscovered paper, and I know that's because I have to do it. I have to do it, Debbie, because of my full focus planner.
Oh, I know.
Thanks to Michael Hyatt. This is so anyway, if you don't know Michael Hyatt, looking him up, he's a very encouraging soul. But I have rediscovered the value of paper. Now, this is card, and I printed it at home, and I did it in Canva. So Canva is my second nugget. And I do apologise in advance.
I apologise in advance. I'm sorry. I just go into sort of a bit of a, I don't know, I almost hyperventilate with my love for Canva. You know, when everyone mentions Canva, I go into this state of euphoria.
I'm glad you say that, because other friends have said, oh, I wish you hadn't introduced me to Canva. I just spend way too much time on Canva. So if you don't know, Canva is an online platform for, what do you call it? Graphic design. Yeah. So I have done this, and these little cards, so this is their routine. They have, first they do accent method, second they do SOVTs, which I'll explain in a moment, and third they do another SOVT. So if they do these 3 exercises and we go through and time it, it takes 3 minutes. Now, if every music teacher did a 3-minute or a 5-minute, you know, you can build up, exercise on the way to school, their voices would be set out in a better place. So I guess this is, can I say this is my 3rd nugget? Can I have? I can have 3.
You can have as many
You're
as
at
you
3.
like.
Oh no, this is it. I'm done now. So these are the exercises I'm basing my teaching on with my research. And this is what I teach each of my year 8s. In year 9, I'll be going on a bit further, but year 8, this is what we've done. So accent method was developed by speech pathologists, and it's been stolen by singing teachers and slightly adapted. It is like Kodály philosophy. It is a sequence. It is, there is quite a thoughtful, well-planned sequence, and it disturbs me a little bit when people cherry pick bits from accent method. It's worth reading about it properly. In fact, I'll show you this book as well. If in doubt, read that. And this is by Ron Morris and Linda Hutchinson. Linda's in the UK, Ron's at Queensland Conservatorium, but also is about to go to the UK. He spends a couple of months of the year in the UK as well. So this is a book about the accent method. It is evidence-based breathing practice, breathing training. So it's about causing more myelination, my favourite thing to do. The last thing is these 2, lip trill exercise and puffy cheek glides. It is, they are SOVT exercises, and I would love people to explore this. Now, these are semi-occluded vocal tract exercises. Have I got time to quickly tell you about this?
You sure have.
30 seconds.
No. Okay. No, I want to know. I don't know about these.
Okay.
No.
Oh, don't you? Okay.
No.
So I need to do an explanatory bookmark in Canva about SOVTs, don't I?
Yes, you do.
Anyway, so semi, S, occluded, closed. So half closed, semi-occluded, half closed vocal tract, which is just the tube from your larynx to your lips. So semi-occluded vocal tract is an exercise which means you somehow partially close off the opening of your mouth so that the pressure in the above your larynx is balancing the pressure below the larynx. As we breathe out, there's a bit of back pressure because it's not all coming out our mouth. If you think of a balloon that you blow up and then just let go, it goes, all right? But if you squeeze it, there's a balloon analogy, sorry, that's another day. We'll talk about balloons another day. But if you don't let the air out, you can see it makes a noise and it goes out more slowly, all right? So it's the same thing. That's probably a bad analogy. You might just delete this bit. That's not good. So anyway, let's talk about balloons another day. Anyway, so when you have the back pressure coming down, so it's called supraglottal pressure, subglottal pressure, the vocal folds are in this state of being very chill. So like being in an iFly indoor skydiving thing. They're floating. And recent modelling by a wonderful man called Ingo Tietze shows that they don't actually bash together quite as violently when they're vibrating if you're using one of these SOVT exercises. So, and they become more balanced in their little lovely wave motion. So they're a really good way to exercise a tired voice, a damaged voice, a voice that's struggling to come together properly because the rest of the body isn't quite working well. And it's got other benefits as well. But they're super useful. All of those things are evidence-based, and so underpinned by the science. And also we've stolen them from singing teachers have stolen them from other voice people. So which brings me to, I think I'm getting more, I'm pushing the envelope. So I have got, if you can't go brrr, you can learn to do a lip trill. So this little exercise, shall I show you quickly? This
Yes,
one here,
please.
the lip trill exercise, is just that's it. Could you hear that through the recording?
I could.
So, and it's sol, fa, mi, re, do. Okay. And you just do it in the middle of the voice, and it's a mid-voice, wake up, connect to the breath, connect to the sound, and get everything starting to go. Then the last exercise is the puffy cheeks glide. That was coined by Janice Chapman. And it's just like saying, why? Or, it's hard, it's a hot day. So you do a glide over a fifth. And you do that through your entire range, from the lowest note to the highest note. If it's really uncomfortable, you can use a Dr. Vox. And mine doesn't have water in it at the moment because a student was using it and I've cleaned it out. But you blow into it and it does a little bubble. Or you can use a straw. Now, I have bought online, I'm very good at finding the online versions of silicone straws. I like it being bent because it means it comes to the mouth, not the mouth goes to the straw and it gets out of alignment, because you want good alignment. So, hang on. Here's one I carry with me everywhere. This is my water bottle, and in it I have a silicone straw, so I can go. Can you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I just do that whenever I feel tired. When I've been talking for an hour, so I'll do that when I finish. And it's just a straw inside a water bottle that I carry in my handbag. So that might be a little nugget for music teachers to carry around. And look, any straw kit is useful. The research seems to be showing now that the wider the better. Initially it was a narrow straw, but once they started introducing the water and the water provides the back pressure, then the wider bore straws are more useful. Does all that make sense?
Yeah, that's fascinating. They are really good nuggets. Honestly, Wendy, I think there are a whole lot of people now driving thinking, I've got to write them down when I get home.
Oh, yes.
They are definitely nuggets. They're fabulous.
Oh.
Thank you. Now, where can people connect with you and your work?
Yes. I have a website.
Well, that's a good
Wendy
start.
Yep. So it's wendy.rolls.id.au, if that makes sense.
Okay, and we will put it in the show notes.
Why do I say? We get these little habits of phrases, don't I?
Yes.
And if that makes sense, is that because I'm checking understanding with my students, or is it just I'm linguistically lazy?
Or maybe
anyway,
both. Maybe both. But we will, hold on, we'll get you to say it again. But yes, we will put these in the show notes. I thought we also should put in the book references too in the show notes. So because
can I also show you one other thing?
Yeah, sure. You go for it.
Sorry,
and then you better give us your website again too. You better give us the website again, because I spoke over you.
Website.
Because I was a bad host.
Oh, never. I've lost it. Can you believe? Wendy.rolls.id.au. And Rolls is ROLLS, as in bread, or Royce. Now I have thousands of these. Pamphlets, and can I find one? No, hang on, Debbie. I want to show you my pamphlets.
Yes, you need to. Yes, you find. In fact, I had a couple of your pamphlets. Oh, no, they're not the ones I had on my wall.
No.
Beautiful.
So This is female voice change and singing. After my master's study, which was involving interviewing, I think I had 5 such generous singing teachers who talked to me at length about how they taught adolescent girls, I realised that the literature was very academically dense and inaccessible. And so I did this little pamphlet with my lovely niece Emma, who's a graphic designer, marketer person. So we did a timeline and we tried to do a little graphic representation of these. And again, this is my dedication to quality paper products that you can hand to a girl. It won't get smooshed up in the bottom of the bag with the dead apple and, old assignment task sheets. And so it's got references, it's got a little bit of data. There is they do now come with a poster. So I have packs that I sell here and overseas. The cheapest one is, I think, $18. And I just really sell them to cover my costs. But I believe that they're a useful thing. And sometimes I will give a pamphlet to a girl and explain this is voice change, and she will burst into tears because she'll go, oh, now I realise what's happening. Anyway, so it makes me sit at the computer more often. So you can order these on my website. And I also have done these. Oh, Debbie, there's so many things I wanted to tell you. Anyway, I've done my little musicianship cards, which you probably have seen.
Yes,
I've got
have
a Penta
those.
21
And
and a
by the
Di
way,
21.
we will do this again, Wendy.
Okay.
We will do
I'll
this
talk
again.
about that another day.
Well, we'll save
right.
the musicianship cards, but people can have a look. Are
Yes.
they on your site?
No. Oh, they should be. I've got 400 printed, but I haven't worked out a price for them.
Wendy. Okay. Look, Wendy is her homework is going to be to get them on the website, and we will definitely do another podcast where you could tell us a bit more about this, but we could go into a little more into oral musicianship and things like that.
Yes, because that is something I'm wanting to develop a sequence for studio teachers. Just 1 minute per lesson to work that out. Because that's also on my.
It really does need to be taught, as in my laborious, painful piano story I told earlier. It needs to be taught. It's not just something every child automatically can do. No,
and back to the habits. If you do it one minute a lesson, then you're building habits in them that they can, and that builds audiation. Yes, let's talk about that another day.
Yes, I love that. But basically, people can find you through your website. That's the best place.
Yeah, I do have a Facebook page as well. So it's called Wendy Rolls Singing and Musicianship. So because musicianship is still a really big part of what I'm committed to.
Excellent. So we'll put that link too, so they can find you on Facebook or your website. Now, I'd like to add these 2 little questions to round off, because it's been my passion for a very long time, music advocacy, doing whatever I can to help preserve, reinstate music in our primary music classrooms, because it's essential for child development. I just wondered if you had any advice to give our listeners around advocacy.
Yes. Oh, look, I wish I had the magic bullet, because it frightens me. I think we do not realise, we have a very cavalier attitude to the wonderful stuff that happens in secondary schools, and have no real recognition of the groundwork that happens all through primary school. And that's the only reason it's possible. So 2 things. One is, I just want us to remember that what we think is not nearly as powerful as what we feel. And so we can tell people facts, but if they can feel the benefit of music for themselves, then I think that's really powerful. And everybody can sing, and that brings me to my soapbox, which I know is coming. So if we can find ways to encourage deputies, principals, other people in power to actually sing and participate in singing, because singing is so accessible, really and truly. Number one, it makes them feel capable, and you know, they know that they actually can do it. And number two, it makes them feel good. And then you've got a chance to actually open up the conversation, I think, you know. But people shut down, they're not as receptive to facts and figures, sadly. I mean, I think we do need the facts and figures, and you and Deb have been fabulous at doing all of this stuff. I mean, I know that you know this, you know, the feeling and the thinking things. I know that you've done both of those things. And we do need to be able to back it up with the facts and figures. But I think the more we can get those higher ups, and the trouble is that those higher ups may well have had a bad experience with music themselves and feel deeply, deeply inept or incapable. And it's probably my attitude to sport, really.
No, but you're right, that fear, the fear that they are feeling because of previous experiences or whatever reasons. So I love that. So focus on that feeling. And, you know, things like getting the audience to participate when you're doing a choral concert.
Yes.
And your administration is sitting there, they're singing along as well, and they're feeling that group joy, you know. Get them along to pub choir if you can. That's wonderful.
And the second thing, I just had a second thing, is I suspect that the secondary schools are blissfully unaware of the threat that is coming their way, and maybe it's worth mobilising some of the secondary teachers and secondary instrumental directors, whatever, to say, are you aware that the quality of the student you're going to get is not going to be continued if this decline in classroom participation in primary school continues? So I would.
That is certainly good advice to try
whether
to.
They've got some, I don't know.
It's a little bit of a silo problem. I was just thinking recently how much music education, well, music generally, but music education does operate in silos. And I think it's so important that we form these connections and understanding about what's happening in each other's silos. So
and because you can perform on your own, then only yourself, only your school knows how good you are. Whereas in sport, you go off and compete against another school. So you get to compete, but you also are exposed to what other schools are doing. It's not quite the same, you know.
Oh, great.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I sure do.
Anyway, there you go.
No, I think that is great advice around advocacy, which does lead to the soapbox, and your soapbox
is everybody has a right to be able to sing, and nobody has the right to stop anybody singing, and nobody has the right to tell someone else they're a bad singer. It's like saying you're a bad walker, you don't walk well. I'm sorry, that's the way I walk, and it might not be the most efficient way to walk, but that's how I walk. Are you saying I should use a wheelchair because I have a very bad walking system? You know, singing is I believe, a God-given gift to our souls. And it's like, if you say someone is a bad singer, you're saying they're defective as a person. And nobody has the right to say that. Even though we've turned music into a competitive thing, it shouldn't be. It's a participatory thing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with aiming for excellence, absolutely. But it's something that everybody should have access to. I have, and this is not a solo story, I have a student at the moment who's in her 60s, and she was told as a child she couldn't sing. And she's been, I think, damaged by that. I mean, she would say that herself. And she's been hurt, certainly, by that. And that's not an unusual story. So I think I'm shocked that it still happens, you know, that you still hear stories about children being told, oh, you just mime. I would have thought that it was something that perhaps did only happen 60 years ago, but I worry that perhaps it doesn't. So, go our music classes. And yes, have auditions, but the auditions can be for placement or to say, oh, you're in this choir rather than that choir, not you're in the choir or you're not in the choir, which surely doesn't really happen much anymore. Surely. Anyway, I think honour the singing of other people.
I think that is wonderful, and that is a perfect place to stop our first Zoom interview. Lovely Wendy Rolls.
Oh, thank you, Debbie.
It has been. Your ear fell out.
Yeah, my ear fell out. Yeah, sorry.
It's just been a delight to speak to you. And we will do it again.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. And my privilege. Thank you so much.
So
all the best for your Christmas preparations.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
As we know, laughter relieves stress. Don't lose sight of the funny side of life. What do you call a man who can't stand? Kneel. I know, there's so many of these. I just had to put in one or two. Thank you so much for watching our Crescendo Music Education podcast. For more information about all things Crescendo, including membership and music education resources, visit us at crescendo.com.au. Don't forget to like and subscribe.